co-founder and executive chairman of Medical Realities, an acknowledged leading expert in augmented and virtual reality. Steve is a regular writer and contributor to media blogs and a thought leader in the digital media and AR, VR, and new technology segments. Based in London, Steve is heavily involved in augmenting reality. So let's hear it from Steve Dan. Welcome.
Good morning, Elle. It's very nice to be invited to speak today. Thanks for David for setting everything up. Yes, as you say, I'm going to share my screen in a second for my presentation. Thank you. Well, as Ali so kindly said, my name is Steve Dan. I'm the co-founder and executive chairman of Medical Realities. At Medical Realities, we use new technologies, immersive technologies, to train and educate medical students and healthcare professionals around the world. My other company is Amplified Robot, which deals in all sorts of things related to immersive technology, but also robotics and artificial intelligence. And I'm the organizer and host of the Augmenting Reality Meetup group here in London. It's the largest immersive meetup group in the world. So, the future of healthy living. I've chosen to talk about the role of artificial intelligence in wellness and healthcare, really because I think this is the area which is going to have the most sort of profound effect for us going forward in personal healthcare, but also healthcare from a countrywide and a worldwide basis. So, enterprise technology, as you probably know, has evolved with each wave of the Industrial Revolution. Today, the one that's pushing everything forward is artificial intelligence. I want to sort of go into AI just a little bit because AI is a big subject to actually take on, and it has lots of parts to it. Really, the sort of technology as we know it now has sort of started in the 17th century with steam power, then in the 19th century with mass production, 20th century computing, and now in the 21st century, it's going to be artificial intelligence. This also sort of goes into hand in hand with the new era of computing. First the internet, then the mobile cloud, and then AI and the Internet of Things. And of course, one of the things I'm going to be talking about is that now we're all connected with our smartphones and computers, and we can talk and converse with people at an instant from anywhere around the world and also into space, that we're generating an awful lot of information. And of course, knowledge and information go together. If we can harness knowledge and information, then we're going to have better outcomes for everybody. All the data that's being collected is a huge amount of data. So we have to find some way of controlling it and sifting it through it and actually sort of making sure that we're making use of the right parts of the data and the right outcomes that data can provide. So artificial intelligence is computer science. It's sometimes called machine intelligence. And as it goes forward, we're sort of getting into a natural intelligence. I don't know if anybody's picked up this recently, but one of the employees at Google was saying that one of their systems has become sentient and therefore actually can think for itself. I think he might be sort of jumping the gun a bit there. We shouldn't be sort of too worried about these type of things, but it's something that we have to learn. Artificial intelligence can be used for learning and problem solving. And without it, we're not going to get very far in the 21st century. A couple of terminologies, the logarithms, are really an unambiguous set of instructions on a mechanical computer that can execute. Many AI algorithms are capable of learning from data and can write other algorithms. As a software company provider, it's great to have a lot of the hard and drudgery type of work around writing code sort of taken off our shoulders. It means we can do things more quickly and more agilely. Machine learning, this is a sort of a subfield of artificial intelligence, and it's really about sort of more about chatbots, and it's not quite as sophisticated as some of the AI technologies we're going to talk about. Artificial neural networks, for instance, are designed to mimic the workings of the biological brain. I mentioned before data mining. We now generate, everybody generates, every company generates, every hospital generates, every country generates a huge amount of data. How can we mine that data and make good use of it? And of course, one of the things which is happening now is the emergence of cloud technologies, where you can store vast amounts of data and access it very quickly. So what we call weak AI is non-sentient machine intelligence, typical focused on narrow tasks. Obviously, strong AI is really sort of getting into the artificial general intelligence area. And super intelligence, which we'll go into a bit later, is involved around what we call really deep mind working. And it's very, very exciting. And the areas that AI focuses on really is machine learning, deep learning, natural language, data engineering, simulation, automation, embodied AI, and responsible AI. And all those things, I would suggest, can actually lead to a future, a better future for health and well-being in the future. So artificial intelligence is designed software which can exhibit human-like behavior, speech, natural language processing, reasoning, or intuition. And machine learning is that teaches machines to learn without being explicitly programmed. And as I said, deep learning is using neural networks to teach machines to learn from complex data where features cannot be explicitly expressed. So deep learning is the new computing model that spans training, inference, and the billions of intelligent devices that will take advantage of deep learning and how we perform intelligent tasks in the future. Basically, it's hardware, but also it's algorithms that increase the amount of data and how we actually sift through that data, and is now the foundation for the fourth industrial revolution that we're now going through. I've heard it said by a lot of people that AI, of course, will never replace doctors. I think that we have a problem. Basically, 5.8 billion people around the world cannot access an expert physician. Now, we can't let this continue. And the only way that we can get around this is by allowing AI to not replace doctors and healthcare professionals, but to, in actual fact, enhance what they can do and take a lot of the burdens off their shoulders. Timeline of AI in health. The term itself was coined in 1955, and through the 60s, the first problem-solving programs were created, and of course, in the 80s and 90s, the growth of the microcomputer actually and the internet started to fuel the revolution that we're part of now. 2010 to 2019, it enabled genomic sequencing databases, AI and electronic health record systems, etc. Natural language processing and computer vision, and of course, robot-assisted surgeries, of which I will talk a little bit about later. And from now to literally the end of the last decade, 2019 onwards, Artificial intelligence is being used in the discovery and development of drugs, preclinical research, personalized healthcare, which I think David sort of touched on very eloquently, and is something that obviously, if we can help people keep fit and steer them away from becoming ill, then that's going to take a huge burden off the health service worldwide. This is just a slide showing all the numbers of companies that are in the broad AI and healthcare umbrella. As you can see, everything ranging from patient-facing chatbots, wearable devices, personal genetics, mental health, working on drugs, research, information, clinical trials, and also genetic search. Also the AI in hospitals, but also helping in medical imagery, data analytics, medical records, disease management, lifestyle management, telemedicine. You can see that AI is actually can have a sort of profound effect of really the healthcare and healthy living going into the future. Specifically, AI in healthcare, it's about detection, diagnosis, it's helping with prediction, it's drug discovery, you can, without AI, the advances in drugs, especially recently to help combat COVID, for instance, would have taken far longer than it has actually taken. Now, personalized medicine, AI is going to help people sort of work out their own personalized medicine regime. Obviously, medical imaging, we have fantastic MRI machines and CT scan machines, and we're actually sort of creating a lot of data, not only 2D, but also in 3 dimensions. AI can help us really sort of discover and look at and take a lot of the drudgery work of actually telling us what those medical images actually mean. Obviously, genomics, cancer research, brain tumors, skin cancer, dermatology, etc. And as David pointed out, also mental health. In speech patterns, by analysing certain speech patterns, people can detect the onset of early conditions, and of course, diabetes and radiology. So really, I'm going to talk about the things we see here, which is keeping well, early detection, diagnosis, decision-making, treatment, end of care, research, and the thing that's closest to my heart is obviously training. So the role of artificial intelligence in health and keeping well. Really, technology, applications, and apps can encourage healthy behavior in individuals and help the proactive management of a healthy lifestyle. For instance, David's already sort of touched on the wearable trackers, or even your phone, which will actually tell you if you've actually taken 10,000 steps a day. But were those steps leisurely steps, or were they sort of faster pace steps? Obviously, it's now understood that the faster you walk, the better the outcome is. But it's also proved that there's an upper limit. You don't have to keep on taking more and more steps per day to become more and more healthy. There's a point between 7,000 steps and 10,000 steps a day in which is the sweet spot. But after that, you're not getting any more benefits, for instance. And that's something which AI has helped to work out. And of course, AI has a huge role in public health, whether that's looking after the treatment of water, screening on a large scale, the role of AI in an epidemic and a pandemic, but not only in protection, but how to actually control those things once they happen. And the role of AI in disease surveillance. for instance, AI technology is improving water treatment, monitoring, safeguarding and public health. And of course, water is something that everybody needs, and the water that we drink and consume has to be healthy. And sort of AI automatically can detect reportable issues and events. Events as simple as happen with call center data. As I mentioned before, that we have more devices, but we interact more with people, and we're creating more and more data about ourselves. But also that here in the UK, the actual sort of doctors and the health service is becoming overwhelmed by the sheer amount of people trying to get doctor's appointments, trying to get hospital appointments, and how we can handle all that. Obviously, AI can actually sort of give a huge boost to what's happened here, and companies like Amazon especially are making great strides in this area. So another role of artificial intelligence in health is early detection. Obviously, the earlier we can detect diseases, especially cancer, the better the outcome will be. Google's DeepMind Health is working in partnership with clinicians, researchers, patients to solve and in detecting real-world healthcare problems. And I think it's initiatives like this which are sort of pointing us in a really interesting way, because, as I've mentioned, if we can keep ourselves healthy, fantastic, but also if we do become ill, the earlier that we can detect what's wrong with us, the better it is for everybody. And of course, unfortunately, once there is a disease, it's disease surveillance. And really sort of, you're looking at sort of going back to the COVID problems, when we first sort of started into this pandemic, nobody really knew what was going on. Nobody really knew how it was transmitted, and really the best ways of, in actual fact, controlling this disease. AI has had a significant input in how we can actually identify all these things. First of all, not only figuring out where it is, how far it's spread, but also how the different variants are being tracked. And now we can track the variants not only in each country, but also in each country around the world, but also down to sort of local levels as well. So the future of AI in disease surveillance is going to be incredibly important, because I think that the COVID pandemic has given everybody a wake-up call, and that as bad as it's been, it could have been even worse. And of course, the role of AI in symptom screening. This particular slide shows the system screening with the Zika virus in South America, and AI has been invaluable to the people, especially in Brazil, to actually sort of control the virus and how we can treat it and contain it. And of course, AI shifts the experience from a lot of things that are really highly manual and completely labor intensive. As we mentioned, there's a lot of data. There's a huge amount of data specifically in healthcare, whether it's data about you as a person specifically, and your data follows you around wherever you go in the world, so people can actually sort of very quickly, if something happens to you in another country, can find out even exactly what your personal history is. Now, as I mentioned before, the better we can record and store this data, the better it is for everybody concerned, not only on an individual basis, but on a basis from a hospitalization point of view, or really from a country or a worldwide basis. Because the problem is, if you have data, you have to be able to make sense of it. And if we have too much data that overwhelms people, then that's bad. So artificial intelligence can, in actual fact, help take out a lot of the drudgery that's involved in this, and actually start to free up people rather than paper pushing or sort of record keeping. Can actually sort of that can all be done in the background using artificial intelligence. And also it's used, artificial intelligence is automating and optimizing case processing, and is based on user-centric design. This is one of the ways it's done from the various sources. Basically, it can be a huge help in the intake and triage of people going into hospital, initial processing, and transfer. That all has to be held in a safe database. And I think that what we're talking about in the future, that everybody should have control of their own health-related database. I think that will get around a lot of the problems and concerns of there being a lot of data out there and people not using the data correctly or professionally. So the solution of using these things has led to a 30% efficiency by using intelligent automation in this way. So we're really talking about the next generation of public health surveillance. A lot of that can be automated now. So automated healthcare data from informal sources, from community engagement, and artificial intelligence used to bring all that together, screened and sifted through, that can actually start to highlight what we should be looking for. Because I've seen in certain cases where people, even governments, have been paralyzed by the fact that they actually have too much data, and it's becoming very, very difficult to actually sort of see the wood for the trees, as it were. And of course, especially in cancer, one of the biggest problems which is going to face us through in the 21st century. How can we use big data and precision oncology? Well, again, artificial intelligence is playing a big role in the genetic background of people, automating pathology to find carrier biomarkers, for instance, and can, in certain cases, predict cancerous protein formations well in advance of what has been able to be done in the past. A company like Pathway Genomics has developed a blood test kit with IBM Watson, and IBM Watson was one of the first big artificial intelligence brains. And it's actually sort of led the way in a lot of things. So they used IBM Watson to test for early cancer detection, and very successfully as well. One of the big problems in the world is that 270,000 women every year die from cervical cancer. How can we avoid that? Well, one of the initiatives now is to start to detect cervical cancer using a smartphone. This is a map of America, which shows that where there is and where there isn't access to people that can do cervical cancer screening. As you see, that a lot of the US doesn't have that particular problem sorted out. So using this new smartphone device, virtually any physician or nurse or paramedic can actually use this device and actually get the information which can help save lives in the future. Where else is deep learning impacting healthcare? well, obviously I've mentioned it's accelerating targeted drug development. If we can get drugs developed that specifically match the problems of the person using them, the better the outcome will be. I mentioned predicting disease from medical records. We can sometimes have too much data. How can we get quickly through all that data? Can we have artificial intelligence go through that data and tell us what we need to do? The answer is yes, we can. And of course, it can also help in reducing cancer diagnosis. The error rate for cancer diagnosis is very high. At the moment, we can reduce that. And it also can teach computers to recognize certain problems, whether that's in the brain or within the skeletal structure, for instance. Detecting fractures. This particular slide shows that it's actually sort of automatically picking up and reporting certain things that that AI is seeing from these particular X-rays. And the one on the right, which is showing a non-displaced scalpoid fracture, is incredibly difficult to actually pick up unless you've had a lot of training, or unless you've seen literally tens of thousands of X-rays, and you can actually sort of pick up these particular things. It can be picked up in this case by a company called AZMed, who are having great applications in this field. The Lancet had a report about digital oncology, about how we can use artificial intelligence and chat bots, and how that will relate to the future of medicine. As we touched on earlier, medical chatbots can offer relevant, high-quality information. They can also offer reassurance, because medical chatbots can actually talk to people quite a lot of the time. I think more than people realize these days, they are talking to an artificial intelligence rather than a real person. And I know when that first started off, it was incredibly obvious as to when that was happening, but it's becoming less and less obvious as we go forward, and as artificial intelligence learns more about itself and how it can actually sort of relate to us. Artificial intelligence can also be used for diabetic screening. In this case, this slide from the Lancet is showing how it was used in Africa for this purpose. So they used AI for digital retinopathy screening that allows non-clinicians to actually sort of look at retinal imaging and attain the right interpretation of the images within minutes, and actually giving patients instant feedback, which is very vitally important. Now going on to the sort of role of artificial intelligence in diagnosis. We touched upon it a little bit earlier, where the company Zebra Medical Vision has developed a platform called Profound, which analyzes all types of medical imaging and reports every sign of potential conditions very quickly, and up to a 90% accuracy rate, which actually is obviously higher than the rate at which it can be done by a person. Mentioned Watson before. IBM has been one of the companies, along with Amazon, for instance, that have been leading the way in the way that artificial intelligence and big data is being used. Watson's been being used to tackle cancer in this case, and as it shows that Watson found treatment options for 30% in 30% of cases that human doctors had missed. So I think this shows that this is something that we just cannot ignore. We have to take advantage of what artificial intelligence can do for us in the future. There's an initiative called Handle, which is a cancer distributed learning environment, which is developed by a multiple number of organizations that can help us change the way we understand and treat cancer. And again, I think this is incredibly enlightening and an incredibly positive role that AI can play in the future. Also, early detection of Alzheimer's. It can be very difficult from brain scans to actually sort of make really sort of focused decisions. AI can help this, so that there's much more sensitivity from an artificial intelligence, actually looking at these images and giving the right diagnosis. And basically, this actually is showing sort of a company that's working to an actual fact, contour mapping, MRI scans. In this particular case, it's looking for contouring in cardiac anatomy. And it can actually sort of spit out the results in 15 to 20 seconds, whereas if that has to be done manually, that can take 45 to 60 minutes. And this is really about sort of how AI can actually work in helping the classification of skin cancer. And there seems to be a marked rise in the incidences of skin cancer around the world. And I think this is going to be an area which is going to be vitally important and something that artificial intelligence can really help us with in the future. Also, artificial intelligence can actually help in decision making. It can help in digital consultation, for instance. In this case, we're focusing on the digital health tap, and that developed a doctor AI and is used by companies like Babylon in the UK to help and give medical consultations. Another company, Analytic, applies a state-of-the-art deep learning technology to medicine. And it's all about, in this case, screening for lung cancer. And that the Analytic can give immediate help to the clinician, giving them accurate information about the patient and what they're seeing from the CT scan that might have been missed before, and in actual fact will actually do away with a lot of unneeded biopsies, for instance. The role of artificial intelligence in health treatment is about treatment. How can we formulate treatment designs? How can we formulate precision medicine? I touched on that earlier about how we can actually sort of create precision medicine for the particular person, rather than actually using a range of drugs. We can actually sort of personalize the treatment to each individual very much more specifically using artificial intelligence. And of course, one of the roles that artificial intelligence can help is in robot-assisted surgery. So we've seen the rise and the use of robots in surgery. My co-founder in Medical Realities, Professor Shafi Ahmed, I know is very excited about this area of medicine. And because he's a collateral surgeon, and he sees this as being one of the main futures of surgery going forward in the 21st century. going back to sort of automating document processing, as I said, that in the health industry, I call it the health sector, it creates huge amount of documentation. How can we process those quickly? Well, the simple answer is we can actually process them using artificial intelligence. Amazon Comprehend, for instance, can help with the insights. It can help with real-time analysis, job management, custom classification, custom entity recognition. This is a very exciting part of things, which is the sort of that, which in actual fact, in the whole scheme of things, doesn't look as exciting as curing cancer. But if you can't get on top of all the data and make use of all the data correctly, then we're actually going to not get anywhere. So this is something which is going to be very, very important going forward. And Comprehend actually does real-time analysis, which can actually sort of help. It can analyze everything from from scans to X-rays, but also to all the mounds of data that is being generated about a patient when they visit the doctor or when they go to hospital, for instance. And really part of that is about how the hospital or the doctors can, in actual fact, have an awful lot of the drudgery taken out of what they're doing by using automated document processing. But it has to be intelligently done. And the only way you can do that is by using artificial intelligence. PLOS One is a data-driven artificial intelligence model for remote triage in pre-hospital environment. Because again, if you can stop people from going to hospital, you stop overwhelming the A&E, the departments in hospitals. So if we can actually have a stage before that, so that people are intelligently pointed towards the right direction, without just either going to the doctor or the doctor's surgery or going to A&E. Perhaps there's a third way here in which AI can help with the potential overloading of those surgeries and hospitals. This is an interesting company called Pollexy, and they're building a special needs voice assistant. And again, this is very interesting work that's been done by Amazon Web Services, especially. They're helping out on this, and it's something that's very, very exciting. It can help in a number of ways where people are have special needs, for instance, not only in diagnosing, but also helping their treatment. In silico medicine, applies deep learning algorithms to drug discovery. We touched on that a little bit earlier about how you can actually sort of use AI in drug discovery and formulate new approaches to treat individual patients, especially those with rare diseases. Really sort of can also help in, obviously, by the next stage of this is the techniques of the technologies of looking at genomics, biotechnology, wearable information from wearable sensors, and artificial intelligence can actually help in all these areas by bringing everything together in manageable bite-sized pieces, which can be understood and acted upon quickly. And of course, we touched upon one of the other problems, which is, sort of the overwhelming of the healthcare infrastructure as it is now, such as even something as simple as finding a doctor. How can you find a doctor? How can you find a doctor near you. I know where I live in London, this is something which is becoming, every year, it's becoming more and more difficult. And of course, artificial intelligence can help in the role of end of care life by natural fact, in a number of ways, by natural fact, interacting with patients directly. And of course, we touched on how artificial intelligence can help in research, in all types of research. This particular slide is showing research into molecular epidemiology, but research in all areas of health and well-being. And of course, the subject closest to my heart is training and how artificial intelligence can help in that. My company, Medical Realities, uses immersive technologies to train and educate medical students, but also healthcare professionals. And one of the ways we do that, we use it using immersive technologies like VR and AR. But we're using AI to in actual fact, helping the training and education, so we can actually sort of monitor how people are doing while they're actually doing their training in virtual reality or augmented reality, and also helps us actually sort of create the results if we're doing CPD courses, for instance. So the bright future of AI only continues to become brighter. We've actually talked about a number of those companies, Analytic, in silico, and Pathway Genomics, which are going to sort of forge a pathway into the future. The investment in artificial intelligence is huge. Where you see the money, it's always follow the money to see where people think is that the money can normally be best used. So the will is there to create better and better artificial intelligence, especially in healthcare. So AI is a revolution for healthcare professionals. It's all about early detection, faster and more accurate diagnosis, personalized optimal treatment, saving time, paperwork, and exams. Let's not forget, this is letting people then focus on the most important things, which are humans. Letting our doctors and healthcare professionals actually be able to sort of have more time to interact with the humans and their patients themselves. So that's my last slide. In conclusion, obviously, you can see that I'm very passionate and interested about this part of what AI can do in healthcare and healthy living in the future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Steve. You've just heard from Steve Dan, co-founder and executive chairman of Medical Realities. And indeed, the future of AI in healthcare is brighter and brighter. And thank you for all these sharing of